What is going on, you guys? Here we are with yet another record-setting month of inflation here in the USA. US inflation climbed to 8.5% in March of 2022 compared to just 1 year ago, which is the highest rate since 1981. The latest data from the Consumer Price Index, or CPI for short, which measures the prices of a basket of goods and services, rose by 7.9%, and that was in February, which was the fastest pace of any inflation data in the past 40 years. So if you guys are noticing a trend, we've had record-setting inflation month over month over month for the past several months. So when is this going to stop, and what can you guys do about it as far as saving your money and investing your money? My name is Michael Elefante. If you're new to my channel, please do me a favor, hit the like button here and subscribe to follow along for future content. Now, there are many things that play into rising inflation. The number one factor of rising inflation has to do with the printing, right? Creating more of fiat currency. And in our case, this is the US dollar. Now, the printing machine has been on ever since COVID started, and we've printed a record number of dollars in the past few years. So guys, it doesn't matter if you're a Trump supporter or a Biden supporter, it doesn't seem to matter recently. Honestly, the Fed continues to print money to try and keep the economy afloat. And this isn't new. Ever since we came off the gold standard, the money printing machine has been on regardless who's in office. Now, along with lowering interest rates to encourage individuals and companies to borrow money to help spur growth in the economy and help keep it afloat in times of economic uncertainty, the Fed also prints money and injects it into the economy in order to help fuel spending as well. When you print money, there is a greater amount of money circulating our economy, which in turn devalues the purchasing power of every single dollar that you have in your bank account. AKA, things become more expensive relative to the US dollar. This can be everything from groceries, random goods and services that you guys are used to buying each and every day, gas prices, cost of raw materials to build things such as cars and houses. Now, on top of record amounts of money printing, there are other things that are causing inflation to skyrocket. Over the past couple years, with the shutdowns around the world, we've had some major supply chain issues. And on top of that, with the conflict going on between Russia and Ukraine, we've seen a major increase in gas prices because Russia does supply a lot of the oil to many countries around the world. And even here in the US, we are no longer seeking energy independence. Ever since Biden took office, he kind of stepped away from what the Trump administration was doing. And by energy independence, I mean, basically drilling oil and supplying it for ourselves, building up our reserves without having a huge reliance on other countries such as Russia, which is why this is hurting the US gas prices so much. Now, the US has been scrambling to come up with solutions to this, thinking about buying extra, oil and reserves from other countries, and also tapping into some of our current reserves. Now, this is more than likely going to be a temporary band-aid and not necessarily a long-term fix. So hopefully our government can kind of figure something out to make sure we're easing the pain that a lot of consumers are seeing at the fuel pump. With all of these things considered, we certainly live in somewhat uncertain times. On top of that, many of you have probably seen recent news of the yield curve inverting. An inverted yield curve describes the unusual drop of yields on long-term debt below yields on short-term debt of the same credit quality. An inverted yield curve is oftentimes a good indicator of a future recession, usually in the next 1 to 2 years following the actual yield curve inverting. So what do you do as a consumer and as an investor? We have record rates of inflation, so any money that you have stored under your mattress or in a savings account is basically just deteriorating away. You're losing purchasing power every single day. But on the flip side of the coin, do you invest in the markets like stocks and real estate? What can you invest in to hedge against inflation and make sure you store the value of your long-term wealth? But as I just mentioned, the yield curve just inverted. We have all this economic uncertainty worldwide. We're in a huge debt bubble here in the US. So if you're investing your money to avoid it deteriorating in your savings account, but you still have so much economic uncertainty, what if the stock market crashes? So it's kind of like a lose-lose scenario when you take that pessimistic viewpoint. So what can you guys invest your money in that has historically been a hedge against inflation and a long-term positive investment? I personally really like investing into real estate, into cash flowing rental properties. This can not only produce monthly cash flow, which can help set you financially free, but it can also be a good store of value and hedge against inflation long term because it's a physical asset, a real asset that appreciates over time. So as inflation occurs and the money printer continuing to go on, as more dollars are circulating throughout the economy, something like a house actually tends to appreciate and stay in line with rates of inflation. And in a growing city, it can actually outpace that further. So depending on supply and demand in the market, currently we're seeing unprecedentedly, is that even a word? I don't know, low supply of housing in most markets across the country. And a lot of mass migrations are happening from some major cities like California City, Chicago, New York, Boston. A lot of these people are moving over the past 2 years to regional cities in like the Southeast or in Texas. So some markets are seeing even lower inventory, and now their buyers are competing with all these new buyers in the market that are coming from traditionally high salary paying areas, working remotely where their money and income is probably the same, coming to markets competing for the same houses. So real estate has become ultra competitive and extremely tough, especially for a new investor who may not have a ton of money to go in and compete and bid on a property with those other types of investors in the market. So a lot of new and experienced investors are becoming exhausted and they're turning to alternative methods to invest in real estate, which leads me to Fundrise. Fundrise is a technology company that makes investing in private real estate extraordinarily easy for the average everyday investor. They have teams of experts that do all of the analysis on developing land, on buying rental properties. They do all of that for you. And then basically you invest a portion of your money, as little as $10 to as much as tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars, and anywhere in between. They honestly have different investment plans that fit anyone's budget. But they take that money and then they go invest and develop land, like I said, buy rental properties, buy apartment complexes, all sorts of things, and then they return the cash flow in the form of quarterly dividends to you as the investor. And you also have the option to reinvest those dividends automatically. So it's really fascinating how technology has evolved, especially in real estate, to where you can literally go on your phone, on the Fundrise app, or on a browser and just look at the Fundrise website. And within a few clicks, you can create an account, select a strategy, and invest your money, honestly, within like 10 or 15 minutes. It's a pretty awesome company. And in 2021, Fundrise returned an average of 22.99% across all of their client accounts. I personally have money invested in Fundrise as part of my investment portfolio, and something I actually really like about Fundrise as a company is the level of transparency that they provide their investors. It's not always typical that you see in different types of real estate funds where you actually know the specific locations and the details of all the properties that money is actually invested in. So I can see what active projects they have, any projects that they sell on, any new projects that they acquire that are within my portfolio. I actually get notified, and on the app, I can actually go in and view all the details in that property. So I think that's pretty fascinating. So if you guys have interest in 100% passively investing or diversifying a portion of your investments into real estate without having to do all the research and grind work yourself, Fundrise is really a terrific option to look into. I'll leave a link to Fundrise to learn more in the description below this video. So if you guys want to check them out, I encourage you to go click on that link. So what I'm personally doing in times of record high inflation and economic uncertainty is saving up a decent stockpile of cash, but I don't want to hold it for too long, right? Because inflation is going to decrease my purchasing power over time. But what I want to do is become more opportunistic. In times of a volatile stock market and also some uncertainty in the housing market and rising interest rates, I want to be more opportunistic. So when a really good deal, like a home run, comes along, or there's a major dip in the stock market per se, I am ready to go and pick up and scoop up an awesome deal. Now, this is on top of a cash savings that's really more of an emergency savings, like a rainy day fund. I usually keep around 3 months, maybe upwards of 6 months of living expenses. So my own personal mortgage, which we're actually buying a new house next week. So I got to make sure we have some reserves there in case something does happen and most of our money is invested, right? I want to make sure we have some cash to make sure we can pay our bills the next several months. I'd love to hear from you guys. Let me know what investment strategy you are deploying. Are you investing into crypto, stocks, real estate? Are you already an investor into something like Fundrise? I'd love to hear in the comments below. As always, I appreciate you watching my videos. If you haven't already, subscribe below. If you got some value out of this video, please hit the like button. It goes a long way with the YouTube algorithm. So I appreciate you guys watching, and we'll see you soon.